Most of you probably know that I'm a huge sports fan. And even though it was just the preseason, nothing made me happier than watching Drew Aller throw some touchdowns on Thursday night. It was so good to get back to it. But there's a lot of different sports seasons that are starting up their season soon, and there's so much hope in the air for everybody, for their own individual teams, whether that be your favorite pro team or college team or the high school team, right? Because right now, at the beginning of the season, anything is possible. There's plenty of weekends where I'm sure we'll all be glued to the TV screen, hoping and praying for our favorite teams. I know I will be. But I remember one time when I was back in seminary, I was watching a college football game, and I was praying that God would let my team win. And then all of a sudden my friend looked at me and he said, "You're praying for them to win?" I said, "Yeah, of course." And he said, if God makes your team win, it would mean that the other team would have to lose. And I just kind of looked at this guy like, yeah, that's kind of how this works. And he said, well, what if there's someone on the other side who's praying for their team to win? Don't you know that God loves you just as much as he loves them? I was blown away. I was like, well, I'm a seminarian, so maybe I win in that case, No, that was my problem. I was stuck looking at the world through the lens of us versus them. I thought only about myself and what I could get from God because, obviously God loves me, right? But I never considered that is not how God sees the world. He loves each of us infinitely. It's the same problem that we see in all three of the readings today. Because the Israelites constantly saw the world as us versus them. Because after all, they were God's chosen people. He loved them. The other people were pagans, they were Gentiles, they were heretics, they were awful. But Isaiah talks about these foreigners who are joining themselves to God, how God's house is to be a house of prayer for all people. St. Paul's talking about how he's the apostle to the Gentiles, and they're coming to believe in God through his preaching, which is making the Jewish people very jealous. And then the cherry on top is that Canaanite woman in the gospel. She comes to Jesus asking for her daughter to be saved from a demon, asking for healing. And Jesus does something strange at first. He just ignores her. It seems unlike Jesus. But she must have kept screaming and asking for help because the disciples asked Jesus' permission to kick her out because she's bothering them so much. So Jesus finally addresses her. He says, "He was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel, and it's not right to take the food of the children and throw it to the dogs." Why would he do that? Why would Jesus play into this division of us versus them, when in just a moment he's going to throw all that out the window and save her daughter anyway? Maybe it's because he wants his disciples to see him break down those divisions that they have in their minds. That who you are or where you're from has nothing to do with if God will answer your prayers or not. What matters more than all of these things is how you approach God. You have to approach God in faith. So if we want to be heard in our prayer, when we turn to God, we approach Jesus just like this Canaanite woman did. First, we come to God in faith. She doesn't seek out Jesus just because she heard he's some kind of miracle worker, or maybe she can trick him into doing something for her. She comes because she believes in him. We also have to be persistent in our prayer, just like she was. And more than anything, we have to be humble. She wasn't offended when she was compared to a dog. She acknowledged her lowliness before the Lord because we all are. None of us deserve anything. It's free gift that God gives to us. It's his mercy that he gives to us. And she just leaves it up to Jesus' mercy. She puts it in his hands, her daughter's life in his hands. And that's what we have to do today. We come to God in faith. We have to be persistent in our prayer. and we have to be humble. That way, God can give us exactly what we need.